Okay. Um, One of the things, and we've spoken about in previous meetings and the last month's meeting was this supervisor um, kind of core that we are writing as part of Patina. That is that has an initial implementation here, and it has the corresponding RFC here. Now, the RFC you'll see was opened in early December. We have 111 comments on it. That one's been kind of sitting for a while, open to feedback and has discussion ongoing. This is the very first code implementation that was just pushed yesterday. So if people are interested in like the next kind of bigger item in Patina that's coming up, I'd encourage you to read the RFC, get an idea of what we're trying to do. And if you're then interested to further go into the implementation, you can go for that as well, of course. This is a fairly large PR. It's kind of um, this full implementation all at once. So just be aware of that. There's going to be a lot of code change inside that PR. And although Quinn's not here, the author, I believe that he has a little bit of cleanup and some work he's going to do before he takes this out of draft. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at the implementation. Okay. The, there is Patina boot updates. One of the other kind of work streams going on in Patina right now toward our goal of increasing our number of components is adding this Patina boot component and bringing the BDS phase more under control of Patina, and Kat from the team has been working on that. I don't see Kat here right now, so we probably won't dive into those, but that's just another kind of feature to be aware of, or these Patina boot ones. That's an ongoing work stream. Is John here? Oh, he just
I
joined.
literally just joined.
Great. All right. So I was kind of going over some of our work streams, the things that we are working on for Patina, kind of longer term items. And I was just about to get to things that you're a little more involved in. I think the UV HID component is probably the main one here. Um, is there anything on that one you just want to talk about, like at the high level of what you're doing and what it kind of means in the bigger picture of Patina and things like that in terms of adding that component to the project for
Yeah,
those that
I
might
would.
be hearing about for the first time?
The point of that is to try and introduce something that's kind of a component that is accomplishing a goal that isn't something directly related to the patina core, to tease out how the component model would work for something like an independent functionality. In this case, the functionality is input device handling. So HID reports coming from endpoints being and then being reduced to standard UFI interfaces like absolute pointer and simple text in. So what I would say is I would appreciate community review on this, team review on this, because the goal here is to kind of prototype how I think this would look and what a good approach would be. But I also think that given that this is kind of the first one out of the gate that isn't implementing a core functionality like ACPI or SMBIOS or something like that, and is also one of the ones that uses the more complicated aspects of the driver binding model and so forth, that it is a good kind of testing ground for critique about how to best do this. So it won't hurt my feelings if somebody writes a long comment about how this is the most terrible thing they've ever seen. Like that'll give us something to actually kind of think through, like what are the issues here? Is there a design approach here that is better or worse? What should the guardrails be about how components are built and so forth? So the component is fully functional. I've tested it in my hardware, confirmed that it works for all the input devices that I've tried that worked before. So in that sense, it's robust and functional. But I am looking for opinions on whether this is the right thing to do or if this is not an appropriate use of the component model and there's another way to accomplish this kind of in the ecosystem. So that's the goal here. Feel free to party on this PR and let me know your thoughts.
All right. And we have had some discussion in there, so if people read through the comments, you'll see where that went. I think after this point, we had a brief conversation about the fact that we'd probably want to allow this to be entirely retrievable from the Mu projects. So we wouldn't want, for example, to have to go fetch various things from the code that it's coming from in the Mu repository. So there's some discussion around where that content goes. So this can move all together over.
Yep, agreed. Right now, the component can be built and used without ever touching Mu, but if you want to interact with it from outside, for example, to produce your own hid IO abstraction on top of your own keyboard, for example, you will need, and you want to do that in C, you'll need the protocol definitions that are from Mu to do that. So you don't need Mu to build this or use it in Patina. You do need Mu if you want to like interact with it from outside of Patina, which is the whole point, honestly. So
Good. Let's see. We have some BIOS work also happening. I think Cat's largely driving that work as well. I don't know if Ron, there's anything you want to say about that, but you'll see that's another theme. One of the main components that we have to integrate in Patina is this Patina SM BIOS component at this time. So some work continues to go into that.
Yeah, that's going on a lot of our demo platforms right now. So it's more in the phase where we're proving it out, whether it works on individual platforms.
I think other than that, one of the things going back to kind of the higher level that went in recently was address sanitizer, just to be aware of. So when we run unit tests, they of course get compiled as host executables that run on the host machine. So it was easy enough for us to turn on the address sanitizer and be able to run that against the test that we have. And we're sitting at about right now in the project, I think it was like 86% unit test coverage. So we're running a pretty large set of code through there now, and we cleaned up some results from that over the past week. I think Miri continues to be a tool that a few people are looking at. That one takes a lot longer to run than Address Sanitizer, but you'll see there's some work from Gary in here, like this PR is related to a finding from Miri, for example. So we have a set of tools that we're continuing to run and address some issues that they report back from. All right, any questions about high-level flows, tools, or PRs that are open? Okay. If not, I think one of the things that we haven't, to my knowledge, started just yet, but will be one of the things on our near-term horizon, will be integrating our EFI 6.0.0. If someone's aware of more work having started there, then you can speak up. But I think we've talked about it. We haven't really started that work quite yet. One of the things that we requested from the our EFI project in this release was to have a change made so that and it's marked here in the release notes, but we wanted a lot of the function prototypes to be marked unsafe. And what this means is that we will have to, in a lot of cases today, where we're calling into those functions, we'll have to mark those as unsafe blocks. And then we are also going to take the opportunity to look at this at a higher level and figure out, like we usually would do with unsafe, right? Now that these are being properly marked unsafe, we will treat them similar to the way we have other unsafe code in the past and say, how do we maybe further refactor or minimize our code or minimize the usage of those unsafe blocks and maybe refactor our code to write safe wrappers around those, etc. Oliver?
Yeah, while we integrate this, do we want to connect this with the other item we have open for the REFI of re-exporting it under the SDK? Like, do we want to do that in one go, or not sure?
I think so. We have a number of things here that are, let me go and see if we can find the parent issue. So this is the parent item. I think maybe we could add that here. Because I was thinking that if we did the work at one time, we'd probably have better visibility into how it connects and to do it the right way. And we aren't in a huge hurry to do this necessarily. Does anyone have concerns with that? And what Oliver mentioned was whenever we take types from REFI, the REFI crate is very strict about whether or not it allows you to add additional functionality on types that are defined in the UEFI specification. It likes to keep fairly basic definitions because by doing that, it makes that code as applicable to as many projects as possible, right? It's less opinionated and it can fit in as a basic building block into more places. So that's one reason, honestly, we use our EFI. There are other projects that attempt to implement UEFI functionality. A large reason why we don't use those crates is because they are opinionated in ways that they may assume that you are not implementing a core, right? They're assuming that you are using their crate to interact with UEFI services that are defined in the specification, but you're doing that from an UEFI application or something like that. So you're still using a Dixie core. Um, and our EFI allows us to get these basic UEFI specification definitions without having some of that get in our way. But what that comes at the cost of is whenever we start to use abstractions like zero copy, and you'll see that in here, um, that does not, maybe we don't have any on this page, but the problem that we have is that those types do not implement traits that we need to use, higher level abstractions like zero copy and things like that that we found work well for working with these data structures. And what we have to do is start to wrap these types. And what we want is a more structured way to wrap these types. So the idea is that we will use our SDK crate, which is our software development kit crate, and we will wrap a lot of the REFI types there so that we can provide additional implementations or whatever kind of opinionated changes we want on top of that so that it works well in the Patina project. Any feedback on, I guess, that stuff? Okay. One of the other items that we've had open for a bit is this one here that has come in externally. I don't know if anyone had any solutions that they wanted to point out for this one. I think that this is a little outside our scope, but this one's just kind of hanging around without without getting really close or anything. I guess maybe we'll reach out to the submitter one more time.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we can reach out one more time, and if they don't respond, we can close as not planned, barring other people asking for it.
That sounds good. Okay. The other thing that we did recently, I went through the issues and did a quick sweep to figure out if we had any laying around that were relatively easy to close. So that's already been done. I think most of the ones remaining here are things that we would need to address. One thing I would say to I guess, anyone externally that's looking at these issues is if you see that there's not a assignee and you're interested in working in the project, then feel free to, I don't know if you'll be able to assign yourself to the issue because you probably won't have permission, but you can leave a comment that says you're interested in taking that issue up, and we will get a notification and we can assign the issue to you. So there are a number of things in here that don't have owners that I think would be uh, relatively simple to start with if you're interested in doing that. So without going through every single issue, since the cleanup's already happened, has anyone, as a result of maybe being messaged during the cleanup notifications or anything like that, have any questions or want to bring up anything about any issues that we need to discuss that you're the owner of? All right, doesn't sound like it. I think the other thing that you can do if you're looking across these issues is whenever you go into them, feel free to leave either a reaction or or upvote them or whatever you want to do if they'll actually help you because that helps us prioritize as well. Sometimes whenever we're looking through these issues, it's one of, I guess, the aspects to consider whenever we're prioritizing and assigning things is how many people it will apply to and help. So just keep that in mind as you're looking through the issues in the project. All right. I wanted to talk about the supervisor a bit, but I don't think we'll be able to get into that discussion right now. Is there any other questions that like Kevin, you or Thorsten have, or topics that other people want to bring up here?
Not from me.
And not for me. I'm getting my team more and more involved in this, but not at the moment.
Okay. Is there anything we could do that would help with any of the efforts you have if you're talking about this internally, like documentation or anything like that? Maybe some demonstration code to do something, or do you feel like everything's there that you need for now?
From my end, at the moment, I have everything that we need. No, it's all good.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else in the team have any topics they would like to bring up? All right. If not, I think one of the things that we will probably consider is I will get back to this UEFI services PR a bit more. So I guess I can talk about that briefly before we close. One of the things that we'd like to do is to provide better abstractions to these patina components. So whenever we went back to like the idea that we have drivers that are written in C or just largely follow the UEFI specification. So they're being compiled into EFI binaries and loaded and using things like protocols and stuff. That we want to, that is one model of how we dispatch code in Patina. So those are what we would call like our PI dispatcher that dispatches those. But then we also have this idea of like the Patina component dispatcher. And one of the ideas that we have is whenever we are writing Patina components, because we're writing those in Rust and the core is implemented in Rust, we don't really need to go through some of those C interfaces to get back into things like the protocol database and stuff like that, because that's already written in Rust, right? So this UEFI services is a work stream that we have that tries to define these interfaces available to components in such a way that they can use pure Rust interfaces. So that's another thing that was worked on in the past, but that'll be a work stream that will resume soon here, just to be aware of. Okay, Sean.
Yeah, and one quick thing. I know it's not quite so technical, but the UEFI forum has been asking us to present Patina and to host some technical discussions and/or workshops. I think it's waiting on us. I think last time I left this, it's waiting on us to come up with. I think I proposed that we have a questionnaire we send out, kind of to level set everybody on their Rust knowledge, so that we can create content that's actually meaningful. Do you think that's something we can do here in the open? And/or do you think this would be a useful use of our time and kind of, again, trying to help get more parties to be looking at Patina, to be thinking about how Rust and Eufy kind of intersect?
Okay, so it would be kind of like ramping firmware developers on Rust and helping them understand how Patina fits into that, like in a presentation kind of format, right? Is what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think there's been kind of a wide range of feedback. Some want a workshop.
Mm.
We've even had some ideas, right, of hosting an event at Microsoft, like a multi-day event or a single day where we could do hands-on workshops. But I think the point is, like, we should probably start, engaging in that community to get more feedback and to kind of see if we can progress things forward.
Okay, we'll go with the hands in order.
I support that. I think that's useful, particularly if there are people who are expressing interest. What an easy and could be done virtual workshop would be, like Michael doing the OVMF port to Patina, right? I think that'd be a useful thing to walk people through, because a lot of people are going to start in kind of a very similar area.
Karan?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say there is WinHack coming up as well. We did get our one session approved for WinHack. So I think that would be a place. And I think we have the option of extending invites to people who we want to attend. So that's an option as well. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, I think actually we are also being asked to attend WinHack in person, and so I think we will have someone from the team there. So
that would
is
be
a good
fantastic.
idea.
Yeah, I'm signed up for like an ODP session, which would include, of course, Patina. So I would love to have someone from your team on there.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I've thought about having a kind of firmware oriented maybe video, also like kind of what Oliver was mentioning in the past. If people think that would be helpful, then I and others I think can help put that together. I think it would be starting from like this idea that you're a EDK2 firmware developer and you're trying to understand how this Patina project fits in, right? And it's easy in some cases to get lost down these technical paths of like, well, I need to understand this in Rust or that in Rust or whatever. But part of what we've done in Patina is try to recognize that and make the integration path a little simpler, where we say, okay, there are a lot of things you can do here, but we've tried to define a way that you can get up and running by doing these steps. And I'm not sure if that always comes out quite as clear. And there's also, of course, some nuances in those steps that might be good to walk through and stuff like that. So maybe that would be a good video to do.
Yes, I agree with that one.
Okay.
I have engineers in Taiwan that are working on this. And so a video that they can sit down and study would be really helpful.
Okay. I think also if you have feedback for like that video in particular, if you like maybe speak to those engineers and if they want specific flows or demonstrations shown in a video or something like that, this is the kind of stuff that's really helpful to hear about because it kind of sometimes gets lost whenever you're a little further down the journey of like what problems people are running into whenever they're getting this now. because we've also kind of like built this as we've integrated, right? And so now we're giving a much larger package of content, and it's hard to know where exactly people are getting lost maybe whenever they get that. So it's good feedback to have. What I'll do is for what Sean mentioned, like we'll keep this in the open, we'll keep the feedback kind of hopefully flowing. I'll just start a discussion page in the Patina project, and I'll list some ideas for videos, and then just to kick things off, others can post their own ideas and feedback as well. Then maybe we can put together a plan to actually make those once we get topics. Yep.
As an aside, Kevin, you mentioned you have folks working on this. Whenever you're ready, we would love to hear more about what your team is working on. So up to you whenever you want to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
For my end, I do have one other question. On top of the YouTube videos, which, by the way, I agree are going to be very, very useful, about 100% of NVIDIA developers, especially also our UFI team, are now using vibe coding in order to create code and everything else that goes along with it. Have we thought about creating specific skills, like in the form of markdown documents or something else like that, that a developer could use to easily enable Patina in their vibe coding sessions?
We haven't spoke about it at the enabling level. We've talked about it a bit at the developer level. That's an interesting idea as well. I think what we can see how effective that is, right? I think we need to play with it, make sure that it's getting people down the right path more generally than not. But yeah, that's a great idea. Especially if there's organizations that are using that like yours more often. So, well, I'll add an issue for that. And where would you, because you would want that like in our Patina QEMU repository, because that's where we kind of demonstrate this stuff, or where exactly would that kind of information, if you have an idea of our repos, be most helpful?
I don't know, under documentation or under the QEMU, I guess both, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Couldn't immediately come up with a preference.
Okay.
So to tease this out a bit more, like one of the things that I think we could do mechanically, for example, is there are well-known locations in the repository where various agents will look for sort of default guidelines about repo organization and so forth. And we could check in some MD files there that essentially point the agents at, for example, the MD book documentation for Patina, so that they have access in their context to some of the architectural sort of guidelines and descriptions as they're sort of producing code. When I've used our agents locally, which if you look at that HID PR that we talked about earlier, that was on my part of an exercise to figure out like how much can I rely on agent coding. So if you want to see an example of the output of that, that would be a good place. But one of the things I did locally was essentially put together a set of markdown for the agents saying, if you want to understand Patina architecture, go look at X, Y, and Z. And we could check something like that into the repository as a baseline for agents, I think, maybe. Is that what you're getting at, Thorsten? Something like that?
I actually think that's a really good idea. Yep. I mean, that makes it even easier. That makes it even easier. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll track. That's a good idea. And we'll just have to, like I said, we'll run it across the agents and make sure that's generally doing what we want, but we'll get that in. All right. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Again, if for those that are looking at Patina, just encourage you to file issues, start discussions on the repo or anything like that. We're happy to talk about ideas and things further there if they come up between meetings. But thanks for joining, and talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.